Hey, everybody. This is Crystal O'Connor from Bullet Talk Radio. And I'm finally back. It's been about a week and a half of craziness. The Friday before last, I went up to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for the Great American Outdoor Show, which opened up on Saturday. And I was there all the way until the next Friday morning and came home. And for those of you who subscribe, you know that there have been a whole bunch of interviews that have been coming out, some 5 minutes, some 15 minutes, some 20 minutes. But yeah, some really, really great interviews. I'm going to get into that here in a minute. I'm actually releasing this episode a day late. Normally, I release Sunday evening. Folks, last night I had a crazy headache and I couldn't really fathom staring at a computer screen to read my show notes and put together a even quasi worthwhile show. So I went to bed. I sent out a tweet and I went to bed promising that I would return tonight with an episode. So it's for your Tuesday commute instead of your Monday commute. But hey, you don't mind every once in a while, right? Anyway, thank you so much for understanding. I really appreciate it. Honestly, I think it was just a whirlwind week and a half, and I think I just came home tired. That's what I think it came down to. That happens at all those shows. So most people come home without a voice. I went without a voice because I was finishing up that cold. So I kind of did the show backwards, right? But Great American Outdoor Show, guys, it was fantastic. I had a fabulous time. The NRA and the Outdoor Channel took over the GAOS, and it happens in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, at the Pennsylvania Farm Show Complex. And the Farm Show Complex is kind of large, and GAOS kind of takes it over, and you have an entire hall full of trips and taxidermists and outfitters. You have the Yeti coolers. They have an entire hall for fishing and angling. There's an entire boat hall. There is an entire hall for firearms, anything guns. So guns, ammo, and accessories, mostly optics, lasers, those kinds of things. Let's see. There's an entire hall for archery, and there's also an archery, like an indoor, I guess they called it a 3D archery set up, and you could go and you could register and you could take your bow and arrow and shoot and compete, and that was kind of cool to see. And of course the food court was all food trucks, so I was eating junk food the entire week, but that's okay. Let's see, there's just so much to say. They had a kids section, folks, a kids section. I told my husband when I got home that next year when I cover the show, he and our son is coming with, because they both would have loved it. There's a kids section that the NRA staffs, and the one gentleman spent like an hour and a half with me going through. They have a line of 20 animals, and it's skulls and skins, and you have to guess based on the skull what the animal is. It wasn't easy. I mean, some of the obvious ones I got, but like coyote or bear or deer, but some of them weren't so obvious, and some of them I'd never even heard of before. So, and he went through and he showed me all of them, and he was telling me stories about each one, and, when he encountered it, and about how he hunted them. And it really was really awesome. And they had a laser shot set up for the kids, and they had a fishing pool set up for the kids. And seriously, a kid could walk in there and spend 4 or 5 hours in there and be happy as a clam. So really, if you haven't gone and you're thinking about going next year and you have young children, go and take your kids with you. You will not regret it. I promise you. And at the very least, the food court does have chocolate milkshakes. Right next to the kids section was actually the 3-gun experience, which was put on using airsoft. They had airsoft pistol, airsoft rifle, AR style, and they had airsoft shotgun. They start you off. Each individual section of a range was either pistol or rifle, and then the third one was 3-gun. They'd start you on the one side, and you'd have to run to the other and do the rifle, and then come back and do the pistol, and then go back and do the shotgun. And that was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was on steel. So, of course, you heard the plink, 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 and it was fun. A total blast. Of course, I had my portable recorder, my microphone, and my monitoring earbuds, and my camera, and all the stuff I kept having to strap on and strap off as I moved through each section. But it was totally worth it. It was so much fun. So interviews. Oh my gosh. I did a bunch. I could have done more, and if I'd have stayed, I could have done more even still. My first set was actually with some folks from the NRA, Lars, who is with Media and Communications, Samantha, who actually was running the kids experience while I was there, and Eric, who was manning the Eddie Eagle booth. So episode 9 that I released last Sunday was actually those 3 interviews. And I was still getting my feet wet, so honestly, they were better than me. But that's okay, because they're the ones with the information, and I think all 3 of them were fantastic. Yeah, I learned that fantastic is a word that apparently I really like. But Lars talked a lot about the Nra Women Program that the NRA has, which Bullet Talk Radio is a partner with, and they do everything from women's shooting classes to certifying women to be NRA instructors. They showcase women who are members of the NRA and members of shooting at large, just the shooting sports at large, be it hunting or competition or personal carry, personal defense, so on and so forth. They really do a great job. And he talked about some of their programs, like the Refuse to Be a Victim program, which isn't even a gun program. But, you know, guns aren't always the answer. They're fun, and they are certainly useful. They are a tool, but they are a tool of many tools. And the Refuse to Be a Victim program is geared towards women and non-gun stuff. Like when you're going to a grocery store and it's nighttime and you want to park underneath a street lamp, as opposed to where it's really dark and there isn't anyone in the populated area. Just things like that that maybe you don't think of. And he goes through some of those. Samantha, she works for the NRA, and she is a female who shoots and is working on school and is a mom, and just a really, really awesome lady. And so I was really happy to have a chance to speak with her. And Eric, of course, talked about Eddie Eagle. And Eddie Eagle is a program through the NRA that helps parents and educators and law enforcement teach children what to do, especially young children, what to do when they come across a firearm. It's a really good program, media, coloring books, the whole 9 yards, and it walks you through step by step. Really great program. So if you haven't checked out episode 9 yet, go ahead and do so. Those 3 interviews I put into episode 9. I've also got interviews where I spoke with Benelli. I talked to them about the new 828U, which is their over and under shotgun. It's their first ever over and under shotgun, and I kind of really like it. I kind of want one for my birthday, but I kind of don't think that's going to happen. I also talked to CZ USA, and if you're a fan of the show, you know that I'm a really, really big fan of CZ, especially their 75 pistol line. And so I got to talk to them. We talked a little bit about their 40th anniversary 75B pistol and about the ergonomics of CZ firearms in general and how much I like them for women shooters. Even with that double stack magazine, it really, their ergonomics are really nice on CZ. And we also talked about the new wholly fun looking Scorpion Evo. It is a evil black pistol in 9mm, and it looks like so much fun. So I talked to them about that. I also had the absolute pleasure of speaking with Doug Koenig, who is a world championship shooter and also has his own TV show, Doug Koenig's Championship Season. And he's been in the sport for a while. He knows what he's doing. He's an all-around good guy. He is a family guy and really promotes children and families working together to get into the outdoors in general, whether it's shooting or camping or whatever, just getting out into the world of the outdoors. And it really was such a pleasure to speak with him. I also got to speak with Jessie Duff. She is a competitive shooter. She has done competitive shooting from all different walks of life, including Steel Challenge and cowboy action shooting. And but really, Jessie and I connected on our love of horses. When I found out that she loved horses, I decided I was going to open the conversation with that. What an icebreaker. So if you like horses and you like guns and you like ladies who shoot, check out the Jessie Duff interview. I also spoke with USCCA, which is the Concealed Carry Insurance Company. And I spoke with Joshua Prince from the Firearms Industry Consulting Group. Now, Joshua is from Pennsylvania. He's from my home state, and he works very closely with a group I used to work with, Firearms Owners Against Crime. And he really puts on a fight for Pro 2A. He has represented concealed carriers, and he's really at the forefront of many of the big legal battles here in Pennsylvania regarding 2A. And he also keeps a pretty good watch on what's going on at the federal level as well. And he walks us through some of those issues. So that's a good interview. I got to talk to Magpul, who actually released some new slimline furniture. So if you're into building your own AR and you have looked at Magpul and you are a lady, look at their new slimline furniture stuff, because it really fits the hand much, much, much better, particularly for ladies with small hands. And I'm a pianist, and I cannot stretch my hands an octave. So I have very small, stubby hands. So ergonomics, I don't care if you're talking about a pistol or the AR platform, ergonomics means a lot to me. So when I found out that they had that, I was like, okay, I need to talk to Magpul. And she gives us a real quick talk, a real quick rundown on that front, and also tie-dye PMags. So that's a fun one. Night Owl Firearms, that is a new company based out of Evans Machining, which is right here in Pennsylvania, and they just released their first 9mm polymer striker fire pistol. I'm talking too fast. And I got a chance to see the gun and feel it and dry fire it and talk to their team about why and what they think they can do better and where they're headed. So that's a good one. I talked to Tactical. They do slide mount optic systems. So it's literally a slide that can go onto your gun with compatible rails, which is almost every rail. And it allows you to then put your red dot optics onto your pistol without having to mill your slide or have one that's milled, like, say, the Glock MOS. You wouldn't need something like that. But if you have a Glock where you don't already have those notches in your slide for an optic, and I'm just using that as an example, they actually put it on a CZ and a Glock at their stand. then this might be an option for you. And they've got a holster that holsters the whole thing and all of that. So I got to talk to Tactical. And I didn't get a chance to interview the folks from Taurus outside of Jesse, who actually shoots on the Taurus team. So we talked a little about this, but I did get a chance to really hold on to the Taurus curve, which is an interesting concept when it comes to a concealed carry pistol. So I did a blog post on that one. That's not an audio interview, but it's got all kinds of pictures and a write-up up on the blog. So some of these are already released. If you subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or TuneIn Radio, or you hit up bullettalkradio.com, you will see them. The ones that are not released yet as of this recording are USCCA, Magpul. Actually, I think those are the two, USCCA and Magpul. So those will release over the next couple days. And that should round up all the interviews. While I was gone, there was so much news happening. We are still at the beginning of the year for these legislatures kicking up in the states. So the NRA ILA is just beyond busy right now, pumping out updates. And there's just so much news. I don't want to say that I missed while I was gone, but that happened that I haven't been able to report on yet. So for tonight, I have a few things that I do want to cover because I feel they're important, and at least one little fun thing that I threw in for good measure. And we're going to start with a quote of the day from The Truth About Guns. Every once in a while, I find one of their quotes on their site, and they tend to be funny or truthful or utterly irritating. This one comes from January 22nd of this year, and the quote is, "There are a few things I hate more than the NRA. I mean, truly, I think they're pigs. I think they don't care about human life. I think they are a curse upon the American landscape. So we got that on record." Unquote. That was Bryant Gumbel, an Real Sports host, titled "NRA is the curse on the American landscape." And there you have it. Quote of the day from The Truth About Guns. Next, circling back on Operation Choke Point. Now, I've mentioned previously about Operation Choke Point, which is where banks and payment processors were refusing to process or dropping clients who were FFLs or otherwise dealing in the gun industry, even when they were completely legal and legitimate businesses. They just didn't like the politics of guns, so they said, "Thank you, no thank you." Well, the FDIC, or the Federal Deposit Insurance Corp, has acknowledged its role in Operation Choke Point and is making changes to reverse its policies in targeting legal and legitimate industry that falls in line with the politics of the current administration. Basically, the FDIC came out and said, yeah, we were encouraging banks and payment processors to basically choke any financial capabilities for anyone in the gun industry. Yeah, I think maybe we should stop doing that. Thanks, FDIC. In other words, they got caught. Remember how the now forgotten story of the conservative groups was being targeted by the IRS? Does this not sound familiar? I mean, this seems to be a recurring theme under this administration with these agencies. Well, Representative Blaine Lukemeyer, who is a Republican from Montana, has been leading the charge to bring Operation Choke Point to light and get the project ended. Now, on a completely unrelated note, Apple, yes, like the phone, iPad, MacBook, yeah, them, they have been allowing apps in their app store now that depict marijuana plants. So the picture that you see in the app store for an app that you tap on when you're interested in the app used to be that the marijuana plant could not be depicted because marijuana was illegal, and they're TOS does not permit illegal activity in their app store, right? Well, now they are allowing apps that depict the marijuana plant in their app store image, that thumbnail. However, by policy, they still do not allow apps in the app store that have a firearm in their image, which is funny because while marijuana has been made legal at least to some extent in certain states, firearms is a completely legitimate and legal business across the board. Right, so much so it's written into our federal constitution. And yet we can't put firearms in the images that we put into the Apple App Store. Moving on to something even more fun, gun buyback programs could end up being a good deal. So Oregon held a gun buyback program recently that got crashed, like party crashed, like wedding crashers crashed, by a bunch of gun enthusiasts. The enthusiasts went to the event, stood outside, and offered cold hard cash for firearms before they could ever be sold to the event for gift cards. So instead of having the firearms melted down, if there was a decent firearm coming through the door, they'd just do a private sale and buy the gun themselves, sometimes for much more money than the seller would have gotten through the gift card, and the buyer ends up with, in some cases, a very nice firearm, or at least a firearm that they could sell to an appropriate dealer. Next up, federal judge strikes down law forbidding firearm purchases in other states. So there are rules about going into, let's say you live in Ohio and you have a gun shop in Pennsylvania that you really, really like. And they happen to have the gun that you want, and no one anywhere near you in Ohio has it. So you want to come into Pennsylvania and buy the gun. You almost can't. If you do buy it from the FFL here in Pennsylvania, then that FFL has to do all the initial paperwork, perform the sale. They will charge you a fee, ship it to an FFL in Ohio. You then have to go to the FFL in Ohio, likely pay another fee, and have that firearm transferred off to you. It's extremely prohibitive. Why? All because the gun you really want is only a half an hour across the border, and you're like on the border. A federal judge has now declared that the long-standing ban on gun dealers selling handguns to residents in different states is not only unconstitutional, but violates fair trade provisions of the United States Constitution. There's an entire article about it up on thetruthaboutguns.com. Link to the article will be in the show notes. But the suit was brought by a Texas gun dealer and 2 District of Columbia residents who wanted to perform basically a test case of this scenario so that they were able to bring suit. And I'm glad this is finally being challenged because it never made any sense to me. Who cares what state you're buying the firearm in? As long as the firearm is legal in that state, it really shouldn't matter. So let's see, there's that. And then, so here's the last one. And this is the one that I absolutely had to cover this episode. So if you completely ignored everything else in this episode, hear this one. The ATF is considering banning .556 ammunition. The ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, is considering banning .556 ammunition. If you're not familiar with .556, it is an extremely popular round for the AR platform. You might have also heard of it as .223. .556 is the NATO designation. And the ATF is trying to pull some cockamamie excuse that it is armor-piercing ammunition that can be shot from a pistol. Therefore, they can regulate it. And by regulate it, they want to ban it. And by banning it, that means if you already own it pre-ban, you already own it. You're grandfathered. But manufacturers can no longer manufacture it, and no one will be allowed to import it. So whatever stash you have, don't shoot it, basically. So they came out with this document, and the PDF link is in the show notes, but it opens up by reading, quote, to protect the lives and safety of law enforcement officers from the threat posed by ammunition capable of penetrating a protective vest when fired from a handgun. The Gun Control Act of 1968, GCA, was amended, prohibits the import, manufacture, and distribution of armor-piercing ammunition as defined by the statute. The GCA, however, allows for the exemption of ammunition that would otherwise be considered armor-piercing if the Attorney General determines that the specific ammunition at issue is primarily intended to be used for sporting purposes. Interpreting the meaning of this statutory language, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives has developed a framework that will apply to requests seeking a determination that certain projectiles qualify for this sporting purpose exemption. The framework is intended to uphold the requirements of the statute and its goal of protecting law enforcement while respecting the interests of sportsmen and the industry. It goes on to say the GCA provisions defining the governing armor-piercing ammunition were originally enacted in the Law Enforcement Officers Protection Act of 1986, LEOPA. The primary goal of the LEOPA provisions regarding armor-piercing ammunition was the protection of police officers from death or injury as the result of the criminal use of handgun ammunition capable of penetrating protective vests or soft body armor. Okay, so this is a multi-page PDF. I might just have to do a full-blown blog post on this because there is a lot here. I encourage you to at least go and scan this document. They are looking for comments from the public. The PDF as well as the show notes list how you can submit those comments. But here's the deal, if you ask me. First of all, when are these people going to realize that nowhere in the Second Amendment does it say a thing about hunting and sportsmen? Yes, hunting and being a sportsman is important, but that is not what the Second Amendment is for. So I don't really care if the 5.56 round is being used for sporting purposes. Now, the fact of the matter is that, yes, it is everywhere except Pennsylvania because you can't hunt with semi-auto because we're slow and stupid. But outside of that, yes, the 5.56 round or 2.23 round is used for hunting. And yes, the AR platform is used for hunting. So if you want to make that argument, go make that argument. I'm not going to say that it's not used for that and that argument cannot be made. But I am going to say that it has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. Not one iota. And you mean to tell me that the exact same round is now problematic because the ATF thinks that people are going to shoot it out of pistols? That's your runaround here? Really? Yeah. There are some evil black pistols, if you want to call them that can shoot a 5.56 round. You know what they're there for? Fun on the range. Okay? No criminal is going out onto the roads and shooting at police officers who are wearing body armor with one of these pistols shooting a 5.56 round. Heck, even CZ's new Scorpion Evo doesn't shoot 5.56. That's a 9mm. I mean, when have you heard on the news or in the paper or what have you a story where police were just being chewed up by pistols shooting 5.56? This is a non-issue. This is a non-starter. And it's certainly nothing new. The ATF knows, the same as you and I, that 5.56 and AR's pistol or rifle platform have been around for how long now? Someone is pushing this. And now, okay, that's not fact. Let me just say that. That's not a fact that someone is pushing this. Not a fact that I have a source on. And usually, outside of a little bit of commentary, I'm trying to give you guys facts. In my opinion, someone is pushing this. This is an agenda. That is what this is. This is a roundabout agenda. So anyway, I do encourage you, go take a look at that PDF. Again, link is in the show notes, and contact the ATF with your comments. Legitimate, respectful, researched, and educated comments. This is a call to action. So plugs. If you like the show and you're listening from iTunes, do me a favor and rate, and if you can, write a review for the show. It's really helpful for search rankings and things like that. So I would greatly appreciate it. You can also listen from Stitcher or TuneIn. So if you aren't already subscribed, you've got 3 ways you can subscribe right there. You get the content automatically as soon as it is released. I'm also trying to get everything updated up on YouTube. So if you're a YouTube fan, you can subscribe to the channel there. The interviews will go up there. The podcasts are being uploaded there. And of course, any of the product reviews that get done get uploaded there as well. So if you're a YouTube fan, there you go. Facebook, Twitter, Google+, bullettalkradio.com, of course. On Twitter, I'm at Bullet Talk Radio. And feedback, as always, is golden. I love to hear from you guys. And I will see you next week. Ciao.